Hello and welcome to Other Voices, brought to you by Peninsula Peace and Justice Center. I'm your host, Paul George. On March 25th, people in over 800 cities and towns around the country gathered at rallies to call for rational and sane gun safety measures, much needed. The national actions, dubbed March for Our Lives, were the result of a call to action by high school students, the survivors of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas massacre, high school massacre in Parkland, Florida. The 800 plus rallies that sprang up in response to this call to action were themselves organized by high school students. As one of the Florida students said at the rally in Washington, D.C., welcome to the revolution, a new generation of activists mobilizing for change. Before I introduce my guests, who are high school organizers, as you might have guessed by now, I'd like to introduce you to some of their handiwork. So we have a clip here from the Redwood City rally where 4,000 people gathered on March 25th at the March for Our Lives rally, and that made it one of the largest protest rallies on the peninsula in many, many years. I'm going to return to that topic in just a second. So let's take a look at the clip.
On March 24th, 2018, the Never Again Redwood City March took place in Krause Square. Organized entirely by youth leaders, it featured voting registration booths as well as a variety of student speakers demanding gun control and denouncing gun violence. Over 2,000 people showed up. Reporting for Scott Center News, I'm Victoria Valerie Mund.
This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
What we really need is change. We have the recognition, we have the platform, we just need to keep going and make sure that that's something that we keep our holds on, because it's something that's so easily lost. Like after Sandy Hook, after Pulse, after the Las Vegas shooting, the movement lost momentum, and right now this movement is so strong and we have so many places to go, and a lot of that is student driven, and that's why I thought this was an incredible thing to join.
We are here for 3 reasons: gun reform, school safety, and community activism. That being said, we must not forget the seriousness of why we are here. This is bigger than me, bigger than us, bigger than Parkland. What we choose to do at this moment will determine the future safety of our children, siblings, and grandchildren.
And I am for more gun control. I am for getting uncomfortable with the other side. Have dialogues. Get out there, talk to someone who doesn't agree with you.
There's children dying in schools, and it doesn't seem like people are acting appropriately. So I think despite what your beliefs are on gun control or the Second Amendment, that there needs to be a solution no matter what that solution is. There's different solutions that we could create, but there needs to be one.
This event was able to bring together both adults and young people, and I feel like that combination is crucial to really being able to bring change.
So many students were getting together, and as a student this is something that's so touching to me, and seeing everyone else here, just knowing that people were united, that was something I wanted to take part in. I wanted to show my support for these people.
I hope that this creates more active young people. I hope that this creates students that aren't only passionate about this issue, but are going to go on to become active adults who are passionate about a variety of issues and are going to vote in every election and are going to be aware and literate and going to read the news and know what their government's doing.
And that was the rally in Redwood City on March 24th. I've been saying March 25th in introducing this program. And joining me on Other Voices this month are some of the organizers of that fantastic rally. Welcome, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves, starting with you.
My name is Sophie Penn. I'm a senior at Carmont High School. And what really inspires me is the passion of the people around me, and like my fellow organizers and all of the students that I've seen, both that I know personally and across the country.
Great.
I'm Stefan Sujansky. I'm a senior at Woodside High School. And what really drew me into this was actually some of my activism in the March 14th rallies as well. And I've kind of grown up in this era of mass shootings. I've known nothing else. So that kind of being tired with that is definitely driven me towards this.
Yeah. And at the end, Ria.
I'm Ria Calcagno. I'm a senior at Woodside also. And what made me participate in this is kind of the same thing that makes me participate in a lot of other social justice activities, which is just that throughout my life, I've had people of all ages who stood up for things, and that really made a difference in my life. And so I just try to do the same thing for other people in the hopes that they might do the same thing.
Okay, well, welcome to all of you. I'm glad you're joining us. Some of you are still in the middle of finals. Graduation is this Friday, is it correct?
Yep.
So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
I mentioned the size of the rally. It's 3,000, 4,000 people, something like that.
Yeah.
The record for the largest protest rally on the peninsula, I happen to know this, was in February of 2003, just before the invasion of Iraq by the United States, when 5,000 people gathered at Palo Alto City Hall. I was the organizer of that rally, so thank you for not breaking my record, but congratulations on coming very close. So let me actually start before the rally and before Parkland. At your respective high schools, how much conversation was there around gun violence, and especially around school safety related to the gun violence issue?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm in journalism at my high school, so it was very prevalent in our lives. For a while, it was something that was consistently being discussed in class, and some of my history class would talk about it too. So it was very much on everybody's minds for a while, which is what really helped draw my interest in and made me decide that I did want to actually take some sort of action.
Interesting.
I know at Woodside, or at least within my friend group, this was kind of this was definitely the biggest high school shooting that we had experienced as high schoolers.
Yeah.
So this was a lot more personal than a lot of the other mass shootings.
Yeah.
That we had really experienced it, and well, not experienced, but read about and heard about.
Right.
So I think that there was definitely a lot more genuine fear connected to this
After Parkland happened.
after Parkland.
So it wasn't so much a concern.
I mean,
or
the
topic
thing was with other school shootings, since unfortunately they do happen fairly often, people would talk about it and have feelings about it shortly after,
Right.
but it would last a few days maybe.
Yeah.
This was the only one where it really continued for a long amount of time, especially, which is demonstrated by these rallies because they happened a whole month, I believe, after the shooting, and that kind of, even though that's not very long, that longevity is something that only happened with this one. With the other ones, it was really very short attention span.
So the shock of Parkland after it happened, how long did it take you to start getting things together to join in part of the national rally?
So, at least on my end, we all kind of came together on this a bit separately. On my end, so I'm the student trustee for our school district. So I'm on the school board, and so one of the other school board members. Is that what that means? Yeah, there's one student representative who is a voting member on the board, which is really cool.
Yeah, neat.
But one of the other trustees emailed me about it because she was contacted by Shelley Masur, who is a Redwood City councilwoman, and she was really wanting us to do something about this and wanted me to get people together from the different schools. So I got Stefon and a few other of the student body presidents from other schools. And then Sophie and another main organizer, Holly, they were already working with it.
Yeah, so...
Go for it.
Okay, so I was kind of reached out to by my journalism advisor. He knows that I've been very passionate about gun control and different political issues. So he was contacted by Belmont Councilman Charles Stone, who basically reached out to him and said, I want to find students who are passionate and who are interested in doing something, and I want to enable them to organize their own event in a local area, basically. And so he kind of brought that up to me, and I met with Charles through that, and then eventually got connected with Ria and Stefon.
Yeah, and Holly, who was going to join us here, but then
Holly,
she had
yeah.
something come up at school this evening. I'm interested to hear that, and I'm glad to hear that the various city council people wanted the students to take the lead in this. I know at the Peace and Justice Center, because we put on a lot of demonstrations, people expect us. And so I got some emails and phone calls, people saying, what are you going to do about this shooting? And I said, I'm going to help publicize whatever the high school students in this area do. Because it was wrong. It just was not for us to go out there and organize something. So we did publicize your rally.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We accounted for 2,321 of your attending. No.
All thanks to you.
Yeah.
So first there was the walkout on March 14th, was that right?
Yeah.
Did your schools participate in that?
Yeah, so I was actually one of the organizers for my school's March 14th walkout. I put it in quotes because it was more of like a walk-in. I worked with administrators at the school to allocate a certain amount of time during the school day for students to be able to come out and not only register to vote, but to have a platform through which they could, speak about the issue to other students and really, make posters and all of that. And I mean, the reason a lot of students were disappointed that there had been cooperation with the administration in these walkouts. They felt like that kind of took away from the point of the walkout, right? It's this, you're really sticking it to the man in a walkout. So working with administrators seemed a little confusing. But my reasoning behind that was more that not everybody has a car. Not everybody can go out and go march to a different location where other students were meeting. So I wanted to create a safer, more open spot on campus where conversations could be had. So that was at least my part of it.
Was there any kind of dialogue around this? I mean, did you have any debates with people? We should cooperate, or we should just walk, or?
Yeah, Ria and I were sitting in the same meeting when administration pitched us this idea.
Yeah, we had to negotiate a little bit.
Yeah, we negotiated a little bit, and I know, I'm involved in student government, so I spent a lot of time speaking with constituents that way, throughout the different grades, and there were definitely mixed opinions there. But I think at the end of the day, students were generally appreciative that they had been given this opportunity.
Yeah, and I think a lot of schools, my partner and I went up to Los Altos High School because we live in Los Altos, and they did the same thing. It was all on campus, so there were a bunch of adults out on the sidewalk with our signs looking over across campus and participating that way. So that certainly was kind of standard operating procedure. So did you, for the big rally in Redwood City on the 24th, did you have a standing committee? How were you structurally organized?
We chose not to have one of us kind of act as a president or leader of our group because it was very much like a grassroots thing that we were doing. It was very raw and very natural. We weren't really we didn't really know what we were doing, to say the least. But so we just would all meet, the four of us. We had a couple other students come and meet with us a few times too, from different schools in the district. And we would meet at the same Starbucks every single time. It was right across the street from the courthouse, so we could see our venue.
That's a good idea, yeah.
And that's where we made most of our decisions, and it was very democratic. We didn't really have any conflicts with each other, which was really lucky. So we would just kind of bring new things to the table each time, talk about it, and then reach a consensus.
Had any of you organized any kind of protest rally before this?
Not protest rally. We're, from our student government experience, we've organized other events. But not
so you know the basics. But how did you approach organizing a protest rally? our checklist of what we need. It's a blank page.
So we had a couple adults helping us out. They definitely let us take the reins and direct it the way we wanted it to, but they provided support to us, particularly the two council people and Soph's journalism teacher. So they were more familiar with the process, and whenever we had questions, they would help us out more with logistics and saying, okay, well, you need to remember to get this. But I would say that the main thing that we were focusing on was how to get people to come to it and participate.
And generally the way it was organized, where we would brainstorm our needs. We knew we wanted representatives from political organizations where students could learn more about different ways they can get involved. We knew we wanted voter registration, and we knew we wanted a platform from which students could speak about the topic. So those were kind of the three big parts, and we delegated work based off of that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, did you have an agreement of what the political position was going to be for the rally? Certain demands that you wanted to make, and what was that discussion like, coming up with the demands? That's often the most challenging part of doing coalition work.
I mean, I think it's an ongoing discussion for us.
Definitely. I'm glad to hear that.
Figuring out where this is going. But I think for this particular event, we didn't want to, as a group, have an opinion in terms of like a particular policy. We more just wanted to use this as an opportunity to give other students to share their opinions and what they thought should happen, and just create an open dialogue for other people to speak.
We also were acting, because we were representing the national March for Our Lives movement, we tried to kind of distance our personal political opinions from the all-encompassing movement, and we did want to align like what we were doing with the national movement because we were working under that name.
How would you summarize the national movement's positions? Obviously, they weren't calling for, say, a ban on assault rifles. A lot of emphasis on voter registration and responding that way.
I think what the national movement did well is they wanted, it was clear that they wanted stricter background checks, and they wanted it to be more difficult to obtain a gun. But outside of that, they left specific policies pretty open. They understood that students held different opinions and different views, and they too did a very good job, focusing more on the discussion that needed to be had because of this, than actually, forcing one policy. Now, I don't think it would have gotten the support that it did had they forced this one ban on assault.
Yeah, kind of a recognition that the issues and the approaches in different communities vary greatly across this country. Speaking of the national movement, how much contact did you have with them? Was it all mostly just online and stuff?
It was mostly online. We were following the social media accounts, so we were kind of seeing what they were posting and how they were going about their advertising, and like we definitely drew from that for our own advertising. We didn't have any direct communication, although we did get a grant from a national organization that was providing grants of $5,000 to any event that was registered on the March for Our Lives site.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really generous.
Well, I might have organized a rally if I had known.
$5,000.
Yeah.
Was that the bulk of your budget, so to speak?
Yeah, that was pretty much our whole budget because...
one of my questions was, how did you pay for the great T-shirts?
Yeah, that was how.
Yeah, that was, honestly, a lot of it wasn't too expensive of an event to put on because aside from the T-shirts and the speakers, I think, it was just a lot of volunteers, everyone just wanting to volunteer their time. So we really didn't have to spend any money on it because everyone just wanted to do this for the community.
Yeah. How many people do you think were directly volunteering that day? I was there, and you had a great
number,
staff.
Yeah, I would say maybe 40.
Yeah, 40 or 50
40,
volunteers
50.
there from.
Yeah.
And how many schools, all told, were kind of directly involved in organizing the Redwood City Rally?
Well, in organizing it, it was the schools of our district, the four comprehensive schools, so Woodside, Carlmont, Sequoia, and MA.
But on top,
Yeah, go ahead.
But on top of that, we had speakers and some other volunteers from schools outside of the district, district like Gunn High School and Bellarmine. We had a representative from Bellarmine, so we were happy with the widespread interest.
Yeah, and then like attendees too. There were from all sorts of the private schools in the district and the other public schools outside of our district.
Yeah, I know reading on. I should have mentioned when we ran the clip that Sophie is your editor-in-chief of the journalism program, is that?
Of the video publication,
The video. So this is really her work, this clip. But,
not mine.
Well, somebody else produced, but you oversee it. Now I lost my train of thought. I forgot what I wanted to ask. It was related to what I saw in the clip. Anyway, there was... One of the impressive things about the big rally in Washington, D.C. was that they made a big effort not to focus just on gun violence in schools, but gun violence. They had speakers who were confronting gun violence as kind of a day-to-day, daily.
Yeah.
Did you talk about trying to address that? What were your discussions around that? Because I found that to be one of the most impressive things about the Washington rally and what they continue to say and include. That we're going to talk about their upcoming bus tour, and they're including those kinds of communities.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that and think about it?
So, personally, I think that that was one of the blind spots that we had in our rally. We were, because our organizers were from communities that weren't necessarily as in touch with day-to-day, gun violence.
Yeah.
And we really didn't consider bringing in organizers who were from these communities.
Yeah.
That really didn't factor in as much to our the organization of the rally and kind of the discussion about that as well.
Right.
But I mean, we're working towards changing that.
Sure.
Obviously, we'll talk later about what we have planned. But
every time you do a rally, even if you had thought of that, there would have been something else that you didn't think of, and you'll say next time, I want to be sure to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering about that. So how did you do, publicity and outreach is always a major thing. You ended up with 3,000 to 4,000 people in the streets. That's a heck of a lot of outreach. How did you do that? All social media? That's what people would assume.
Not completely all. I did a lot of the publicity for the event. So I was running the Instagram account that we created. Holly, who's not here, was running our Twitter account. And then on top of that, I was making press releases and sending those out to all of the big news corporations, a lot of independent reporters. And I worked with my journalism advisor to come up with a comprehensive list to send that out to, and I was reaching out to different media representatives and asking for advice with media.
Good for you.
So it was a lot of different factors coming together, and Ria went and hung up posters in all of the local businesses around the square a couple days before. We had flyers at school. We all announced it at our rallies on the 14th. So it was a big mixture of things, really, but I think social media was definitely a huge factor in it.
And of course, it was online at the March for Our Lives main site.
Yeah, we registered it there too.
Ria, you took posters around to local businesses. Were they? I'm guessing they were pretty receptive.
None of them. The only ones who declined were just because they didn't let anyone hang up posters around there. But yeah, everyone was generally supportive. A few people even asked me about it, oh, what's that? When's it going to be?
Good.
Generally supportive.
Were you satisfied with the media coverage you ultimately ended up with? This is one of the things is you work all these hours and you work so hard and you go out that day and have the rally and then you go home exhausted and sit there and wait to see your 2 minutes on Channel 7, you know?
I don't think we really ended up getting very much media coverage. Of course, I very much pushed my publication to go and cover it, which they did. But
boy, that would have been really embarrassing if
I
you
know,
were
if my own publication won't cover it, who will? So we had student reporters, and my whole journalism program actually put out this huge package online for it. But we didn't really get a ton of professional reporters. I think the San Mateo Daily Journal published a photo, and they did coverage of all of the marches that were happening in the I don't know if it was the district or just the area, but they were covering a lot of different stuff, so we had like a snippet in there. I think it's hard to cover something like this that's so local when there's these national rallies and these like big marches happening in San Francisco and San Jose and Berkeley. We didn't expect to get a ton of media attention just because the coverage that day was so widespread.
Yeah, and Washington, D.C. was such an historic event, really, and a lot of great footage from there. What about Stefan and Ria? Were you happy with the coverage? I mean, did you understand it, or?
You know, I think news about it ended up getting to the people that mattered, and that's the students. I know that I'm involved in student journalism as well at Woodside, and I know that we had people out there covering it as well, and that Carmont, you guys have tons of students reading your guys' papers, so they do a great job with that. So if students are the ones who read about it, if students are the ones who go out and they hear, see these examples of people going out and being politically active and seeing examples of their peers going out and being politically active, then I'm fine with that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we'd like to get more news coverage from news sources that older people or adults are more likely to watch. I was happy with the coverage for young people.
Yeah. Especially because it's not really like that type of media outlet isn't really necessary to get it spread amongst people our age. It was definitely spread a lot via social media, people posting on their Instagrams and Snapchats. So it definitely got where it needed to go via that.
I would say our biggest coverage was probably all the people who came, because we saw like a ton of stuff being posted on social media and like our accounts were getting tagged. So I think that definitely was our main source.
And I assume that was your goal, was to reach your peers and activate them and mobilize them and get them involved in this struggle. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anything about the rally anything else about the rally you want to mention before we move on to kind of what's next and what you're...
Well, I really saw the rally as sort of just this testament. And I know that, kind of the state of technology and the internet has made everything so fast-paced and has oftentimes, made people forget about events like this because the news cycle is so fast. But I saw this really as an example of technology being used to our advantage in this case. And you look at the people that we just brought out. We didn't spend thousands of dollars on advertising and all of that. This was just through word of mouth, through Instagram, through Snapchat, through these social media sites, and through technology. And so I think that this is a great example of technology being used for good.
Yeah.
I'd also like to point out the importance of local events like this, because obviously there were huge, historic events happening the same day. So you kind of think about, well, why didn't we just go join the San Francisco one or the San Jose one? But I think that this type of event is really important because there are a lot of people who can't go to those sort of events. Disabled people, I'm partially disabled, elderly people with younger children, that those type of events just aren't that accessible. So these type of events that are more local and more accessible are really important so that everyone has the opportunity to get involved. And the second thing was also going off of our main purpose, which is to give people our age a voice. this event provided the opportunity for a lot of people our age to actually go and be speakers and share their feelings, which they wouldn't necessarily have gotten if they just attended one of the larger events. And I think we accomplished both of those things.
Yeah, you sure did. The speakers, I think, were pretty uniformly terrific. Were some of them very first-time public speakers?
I was. I think a lot of the speakers hadn't really done something like that before, and I know a lot of them coming up were like really nervous and stuff, but I kind of told them all before they spoke, or some of them, one of them maybe, I was like, it doesn't matter if you mess up. It doesn't matter if like people don't clap as loudly for you, or if you don't say something correctly or you stumble, because like that's not what we're here for. We're not here to perform. We're here to really make a statement and push for gun control. And so our individual performances, in my mind at least, didn't really matter as much because it wasn't why we came.
Yeah, and the collective result was really terrific. And the attendees there, the 3,000 or 4,000, however many there were some old geezers like me there, but it was a very young crowd. You must have been really happy that so many students actually responded to your call.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's who you were trying to reach. So what are you up to now? Where do you take all this energy that has built up? What are you working on?
Sure. So, we've still been meeting regularly as a group.
Good.
In fact, we've begun bringing in, now that we're all seniors and we're going to graduate, we've started bringing in people who are sophomores and who are juniors to kind of continue the work that we've been doing, and to kind of keep student interest, keep student interested in this topic, especially in this election cycle. We've actually begun planning an event on August 4th, which is focused on voter education, and it's going to likely include, food trucks and student bands and speakers who focus on different topics that are relevant to students. So this is going to be a lot more focused on voting and learning how to vote. And we recognize, the first was our first event was a protest showing that we wanted change, and when we saw that there was no response from our Congress, now our solution is to change who's in Congress.
Right. So where is this going to be on August 4th?
Same place.
Yeah, same place,
Yeah.
Courthouse Square in Redwood City.
Oh, all right.
6 to 9 p.m. is the current plan.
How was it dealing with the authorities in Redwood City to set that up? Did you have to go through a permit process and stuff? Or?
We did. Luckily, one of the Congress people who kind of brought us all together was like, I'll take care of securing the permit. So Charles Stone actually got the permit for us to use that venue. And
who's Charles Stone?
Charles Stone is a Belmont congressman. So he did that, and we talked to him throughout that process, and we were all emailing each other about it, just because I think he wanted to kind of give us a very strong start. And him and Shelley Mazer were kind of there as our logistical advisors, I guess you would say. So they were like, we can take care of like the little nitpicky things that you delegate to us, and then you guys will do the whole like planning and the outreach and all of that.
Yeah. Who was responsible for the sound system that broke down right at the beginning of the rally? That happens all the time.
It actually didn't break. We couldn't turn it on. We hadn't realized that the sound system, our electricity wasn't turned on at the venue. For whatever reason, they just hadn't turned it on, even though we had booked it, which is okay. And so we had to run and find a representative to come and turn it on really quickly, and then we had a small speaker that had been brought in as a backup, luckily, which we planned on using if all else failed. But luckily, we were able to turn it on with just a couple minutes
Sorry
late.
to bring up such a painful memory.
It's okay. It's okay. We've gotten past it.
So I'm really glad to hear you're reaching out to other grades or activists who are going to be there, because I run into this all the time in working with students, and the groups I usually contact and are in touch with are college level and stuff. But it's a problem because everybody goes away during the summer. Then when they come back in the fall, it's a whole different set of people. I have no idea how to get a hold of anybody. They don't know I'm around because the seniors that all graduated forgot to leave a contact for the Peace and Justice Center or something.
What?
So this kind of continuity is really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll definitely be key in continuing this, not just here, but with many of the Parkland students and other students around, because it seemed like it's been a lot of upperclassmen leading the charge, and so in order to continue this movement, it'll really be important to make the younger kids carry this along.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about how we might not have had the representation that we wanted among the leadership of the or the organizers of the event. Previously, we didn't touch on kind of the day-to-day violence that a lot of people encounter. So this time around, we're actually working to make changes with that. We've invited several members of these underrepresented groups to become part of the organizing team, just so that we can attract all demographics. And we really see as attracting people who deal with this on a more day-to-day basis as kind of a crucial part to creating a sustainable movement. Because if people don't see this every day, there's a chance they'll forget about it.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things the national group has again done so well. I mentioned that before, and I'm really glad you're aware of that and working on that. It's not easy to do, but because gun violence isn't just high schools, and Parkland was so shocking. I'm glad it's one result has been to spark this movement, but gun violence is pervasive, and we need to be taking an overall encompassing approach if we're going to get an overall encompassing response, the kind of legislation that we need to do. I want to turn to our studio audience, and because we always want to get everybody in on the conversation, and so what I'll ask you to do is put your hands up if you have a question or a comment, and wait till Crystal arrives with the microphone. And when she does, if it's not a problem to stand up, please stand up for that. Before we go to the first question, let me just, I wanted to follow up one thing on the voter registration coming up. Sorry, I thought it would take longer for the microphone to get there. So I thought I was filling, and then you were. But the national movement has just announced new plans. I'm sure there's not a lot there for, what are they calling it?
Bus tour?
Road to Change, where they're doing a bus tour to, I think, 50 cities and focusing on voter registration. And they're going to be focusing in, as I understand it, congressional districts where the incumbent is getting substantial contributions from the National Rifle Association. Before we started taping, you mentioned you were trying to look into this, but I guess this is early on, but you hope to be involved in this effort somehow?
I mean, it's unlikely that they would be coming by here, just given the general opinion on this subject around the Bay Area. But if they were to come here, we would really like to. We were talking about trying to link up somehow, since they're doing it over the summer with our event that we're having. But we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I hope that can work. Maybe you can fill a couple of buses if they go to Fresno or something, and target Devin Nunez, who needs some targeting. All right, here to the audience. Yes. Thank you.
Well, let's see. First, I just wanted to say that was such a terrific video. I was just blown away when I saw it online a couple days after I went to the rally. You know, the rally was wonderful, and it was great to be there with all these other people. But you did such a beautiful job of showing different aspects that a person standing in one place couldn't appreciate. And you echoed what people were saying at the mic with people holding signs in the crowd and all of those kinds of aspects. So you just represented it so clearly and beautifully. So thank you. And then secondly, what I really wanted to get to was, I'm very glad to hear that you're trying to find ways to follow up on the inclusivity that the national rally made a theme of. Gun violence is a daily reality for so many people in so many parts of the U.S. And what we really have to try to find is a way to address that general problem where people are not safe just being in their communities, going out to play basketball with their friends or walking home from church. That's the really huge change that we have to address. And I'm really glad that you're looking for ways to make more connections here in our immediate area on that subject. So I wondered if you had more to say about how you think you may be able to follow up on that. It's not easy when you're with summer, people have other plans, lots of people are going off to college away from this area, but I really hope you'll be able to find a way to plant that so that it can grow from all the work you've already done.
Yeah. Thank you so much, first of all. We definitely do live in kind of a bubble where we don't see a lot of this day-to-day gun violence, and our areas are just, we're very sheltered in that way. So we are reaching out to find student leaders from these underrepresented communities that can actually speak on that, because we know that we don't have that perspective and we want to find people that do. I mean, if we even look at like East Palo Alto, we have a city with really, really high crime rate. And there's definitely like a lot of gun violence there. It's been worse in the past, but it's still a very prevalent problem, and it's so close to us, yet at the same time we tend to sort of overlook it.
Yeah. I think East Palo Alto Academy is actually a school in our district, but it's kind of it's more of a charter, so it's not as included in a lot of the discussions as the other schools. But we are reaching out to students from those schools. I have a contact at that school actually who I receive updates from and present it to the school board every meeting. But then in addition to that, you can talk a bit about who you've been reaching out to.
Yeah. So we have a lot of organizations or a lot of clubs on campus at Woodside, and I know at other campuses as well, which are clubs that focus on the needs and interests of these underrepresented, oftentimes minority, low-income groups. And this includes the Dreamers Club, which focuses on undocumented students, the Young Latino Leaders. So reaching out to the leaders of these clubs who already, possess these leadership skills and are very interested in social activism, and bringing them kind of into, onto our team, stealing them away, is definitely one strategy that we're using across the district.
It's also a good idea when you're organizing is to start to go to where people are already organized. So clubs or churches or something where there's already organization, because then you talk to them and bring along all these people instead of trying to talk to individuals. All right, back here. Okay, you've already got the mic, so you're next. And hold it right up there.
I'd just like to start by saying thank you to all three of you and to all the people I'm sure who worked with you, but you are an inspiration to us, and you bring hope to some of us who have really felt despair with things that are happening. I'm really impressed with what you've been able to do, and I just have a question for any of the three of you who would like to answer. I know y'all are heading off to college in the fall. Do you have thoughts or plans about how you might keep the lessons that you've learned and all of this experience that you've gained, and how you might capitalize on that moving forward?
Absolutely. I'm like moving across the country for college, so I won't really have any of the same contacts I have here, unfortunately. That being said, I definitely plan on getting involved in social activism on campus. I want to get involved with broadcast journalism, and I kind of want to just see what's there and what needs more attention and kind of go with that, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to be going to school in Washington, D.C. next year, which is kind of, it's a great place to be if you're interested in politics. And so I hope to use the skills that I learned here, not only to work with politicians around that area and maybe intern with the politicians who are helping fight the gun lobby and help fight for reasonable gun control measures, but also use the skills, use the communication skills and the organizational skills that I learned here to organize other events there as well in Washington, D.C., where unfortunately gun violence is prevalent as well. So that's just me personally.
Unlike them, I will be staying around here for college, which is good because I will be able to kind of keep an eye on the kiddos that we're leaving this movement to. So that's one way, just leaving it to them, but also being there as a resource should they need it. I'd say conceptually something that I'll carry with me is throughout high school, I've had experience organizing events in school, but not really so much in the community and in the real world. So organizing this in the community and not having it just be students, but people of all ages coming to this event in the community, not really through our schools, really showed me that we can make a difference, not just through school things, but going out into the community and organizing things there. So that's something I'm definitely going to be focusing on there. And also, one quick comment, thank you for what you said and everyone for your support. And you mentioned that you attended the rally, so thank you for attending. We really did appreciate everyone who came and everyone who continues to support, because definitely while the students are doing a lot, it's not something that would make any change if it was just us. So thank you to all of you.
All right, well put. Have any of you started checking out activist opportunities at your soon-to-come campuses?
Stanford has a Stanford.
You're going to Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford in Government program. So that it provides. There's a few people who are in it, but it more provides services to the rest of the students, trying to get them involved in the democratic process and leading other students to other opportunities for them to get involved. So I'd really like to be a part of that.
Yeah, neat.
Well, I was looking at the college I'm going to be going to next year.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Georgetown next year.
All right.
And I definitely made a point to ask questions and focus on the social justice and community service part of it. And I know that they do a lot of work in their community there as well. Some of it focused on violence in the community, but a lot of it focused on education, access to food, poverty, issues like this. So I'm definitely going to be involved and interested in that next year.
Yeah.
I will be going to Syracuse, and I actually, when I went there to visit, I saw like a protest happening on campus.
So you ran right over.
So I was like, almost. I was like ready to go. I didn't quite know what was happening, but I was like, all right, I'm with it. But I definitely have heard a lot about it being a very active campus politically, and they have a huge journalism program there. So I am absolutely planning on getting involved, whether it's through different journalism programs or whatever I saw. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. It reminds me of something that happened quite a number of years ago during the Bush administration. I had gotten a call from somebody who works at the Hoover Institute and said, "This isn't public, but George Bush is coming here tomorrow for a special meeting." So I put the word out, and thousands of students came out to keep George Bush from getting on campus. But when we got over there, I realized that it was campus visiting day, and there was these students from all over the country coming to see the Stanford campus. And they all came over and joined that rally. I talked to one mother from Ohio or something. She was just thrilled. She said, "This is where I want my kid to go." So that can be inspiring. We had another question back here. So here comes the microphone.
I would also thank you for doing this work. I know it's very difficult to get things organized and to get groups of people to work together. Do you have any influence over your parents? Because some people, say at Woodside High School, and more so perhaps in the private schools in this area, are wealthy and powerful, the adults. And do you have any influence over them? Is there any program or something to try to get them to be, open their paychecks and their power on this cause?
Wasn't there some kind of parent pledge thing that was floated around for a while from March for Our Lives to ask parents to get sign a pledge to vote for people who?
I know for our August 4th event, we're definitely reaching out to contacts who will be able to donate money to the event, since we won't have access to the grant that we did. So in that sense, we are trying to influence not necessarily our parents, but other people in our community to give us some cash.
Is there a role though in a youth-led movement to focus on changing adult minds? Not just the elected officials, but things like talking to parents and saying, you've got to vote. It's really important that you vote for somebody who doesn't take NRA money and things like that.
I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely an important, of course any movement is trying to get as many people as possible, regardless of age. Right now, with the events that we're focusing on, we're more focusing on that student demographic, but we're not sure where it's going to go. So definitely in the future, perhaps. But also, by us focusing on trying to educate people our age and get them active in voting, I think it'll just be a natural byproduct that many of them will start to continue those conversations with their parents and the adults that they know.
That's a very good point.
Go ahead. Parents are definitely a really big supporter of the things we're doing, and it is really important to have that that support and that. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it definitely is very crucial. A lot of parents kind of dragged some of their kids to the rally, I think. A lot of kids came on their own, but it was definitely helpful to have the parents who were so invested in what we were doing, and they kind of have the older perspective on politics and on gun control, and they, I think, can kind of influence kids who might not be as politically aware or active, because it is hard in high school. We don't see the big picture all the time, and I think it definitely can be valuable to have parents who can kind of bring their kids or go with their kids, or their kids can bring them to different events, because then you have this family discussion happening that wouldn't otherwise take place.
Yeah, excellent point. Okay, back here. Thank you.
Hi, speaking as one of the parents. First of all, the rally was so impressive, and just seeing, 8-year-olds who spoke and seniors who were there who participated in protests in the 60s and the 50s, and just we're so excited to see everyone up there. It was amazing to be there. And I just wanted to go back to a point that one of you made about the local rally. And I think that's so important because, I marched in the Women's March in San Francisco, and I watched stuff on TV, the bigger rallies, but it was so important, I thought, to have this local event that you did. And a lot of people were like, well, should I go to the city or should I do this other thing? And I think anyone who came to this Redwood City rally was so excited to be there.
Absolutely.
Because there was people they knew, and there was our own community there in all different ages, and seeing you guys lead this thing was incredible. And just seeing the support. I was one of the volunteers giving out water and snacks, and we were giving them out for free, but everybody kept saying, but I want to buy them. We want to give you money. And I'm like, well, we don't know how to take the money, but there was a lot of support. And I hope that wherever you are all going, that you can bring that local feel to whatever it is you're doing. You'll be in Washington, Stefon, but, that's obviously a national place. But I think anything you can keep on the local level, I'm be curious your ideas how you can do that, just keep going with it. So my question, I guess, would be, how do you keep things local, but also have them be part of something bigger?
I think
that's your mom?
That's my mom.
Thanks, Mom.
I think one of the big things with kind of making things have that local feel is the personal connections. And I know even the day of the rally, people would walk through the square and they'd ask me as we were setting up, they go, oh, what's happening? Or they'd say, oh, we're walking by now, we're coming back in a couple hours, and we'd have a little conversation about it. And I think being able to have those one-on-one interactions with the people that you're trying to influence and the people that you want to work with is what really kind of gives it that raw, natural, local feeling, and what makes people feel like they are an individual that's valued in the community, in the protest, in the event, whatever it may be. I think being able to actually talk to the people that are coming to your events is what really gives it that feel.
That's true. At the heart of Peninsula Peace and Justice Center, we are a community-based organization. We have no aspirations of being statewide or even Bay Area or anything like that. We're Peninsula, from San Mateo to Cupertino or so is where our membership is. And it's important because it is a powerful organizing tool. We are almost out of time, so I'm sure you had something great to say, but
it's okay.
I will start with you then, Stefan. I would like you to each take 30 seconds or so to whatever is important to you at the end to say here. What did you come out of this experience with? What's the most important thing that you're going to go off to Georgetown with?
Well, I mean, I think kind of going off of your local question, I mean, politics is personal. And getting students to organize events, they're going to lead events and organize events that are inherently local and personal, because most of the time they've grown up in these communities their entire lives. They're much less nationally minded. So I think that this kind of really demonstrates the benefits of having young people lead events, is they're really very in touch with their communities and very in touch with other people around them.
Let me turn to Ria for the same thing. And you're going to get 15 seconds. I'm sorry, we're really running out of time. Not your fault.
Just one moment, I guess I'd like to focus on. In that video, there was the little girls, standing on the stage, calling out, leading the cheer, and that is really powerful. What we can do with that, because obviously we're trying to talk to, get the attention of politicians and get them involved and listening to us. But there's this whole other younger side of, we had little 7-year-olds. Coming up to us and really wanting to participate. So young people our age have the ability to get even younger kids to continue that.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off
That's
because
all right.
we're out of time. Ria, Stefan, and Sophie, thank you so much for joining us. Let's give them a big hand and thank them. You've been watching Other Voices, brought to you by Peninsula Peace and Justice Center. We're here every month. We will see you again next month. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.